And 1, 2.
Oh, Mr. Newell.
Right.
Are we on?
You're on.
Testing. Oh, we've been on. Hey, man.
You're on. Put on a good
All right.
show. Hey.
Okay. What a groovy show this is.
Blow our mind.
Actually, you know, this is a play I'm writing. It's a symbolist drama. And it's called Waiting for God.
It's pre-symbolist.
Oh, okay, pre-symbolist. What? I've never been able to understand that distinction, Tom.
Well, I know you haven't.
Well, I mean, I've heard it bandied about in high school and, you know, places like that. But, you know.
In the cafeteria, man.
Yeah. Well, over the steamed squash and day-old pizza, they frequently throw around phrases like pre-symbolist drama.
Where it is? Yeah, I know it. It's happened before.
This is It, not the science fiction movie from 1958, although in many respects it resembles one.
Oh.
As you see the frantic technicians, if this were a rocket ship, we would have plunged into the sun about 3 minutes ago. But that's okay, because the rocket ship's made of plastic anyway. At least you get a good light show. Don't you love that reassuring drone? It can only mean one thing. The monitors are on. In fact, thanks to this miracle of modern technology known as monitors, you can hear an imperfectly reproduced voice. Well, if these monitors were humans, what would they be saying to themselves right now? That's too much like the Flintstones. When the animals talk about the Flintstones, and they discuss how ill-served they are by their masters, what they're really doing, in essence, is demonstrating how commodities betray their owners. The Flintstones have many deep, enduring meanings for those of us who are knowledgeable enough to read them. Well, very shortly, we're going to present live from the Middle East WMOB, Mafia Radio. Yes, we've been dominating the Boston airwaves for 25 years. And if anybody gets in our way, we'll break their dialing fingers. In fact, here's a helpful hint. If you listen to WMOB at work, here's what you do. And we hope you do listen to it at work, because if you don't, well, you're just incurably lame. And decent people will shun you. If you listen to WMOB at work, just get some super glue and you nail that dial to 104. Don't let it move for nothing. If someone tries to move it, they'll break the radio, you see. Well, let's see. We got this. So very shortly, we will be presenting WMOB, Mafia Radio. What a mess, huh, guys? You know, we in the radio business love to point out our own flaws. In fact,
that buzz.
The buzz? Yeah, I wish I had a buzz. We in the radio business love to point out our own drug addictions, too. Well, as I was saying, the more we make ourselves to look to be silly-ass amateurs, the more you love it. That's what it's all about here on WMOB 104. The Mafia of Boston. We don't play what you want. We play what our advertisers want you to hear. Total pass. You want to hear Elvis? Forget it. He's
all right.
Fat, frustrated old...
All right.
We've got what? Well, we had something here. Now we got something.
All right.
Our engineers?
That's a go.
You can hear it. I can hear myself in this radio.
You ever heard of that buzz?
Got that noise back. Plug that sucker back in again.
Yes, here at WMOB, we've been screwing you for 25 years in the same location. Because at WMOB, we mean business. Because business is business. and all the wise guy DJs here at WMOB, we all hate you. No, well, we don't hate you. We hate Arbitron because they consistently fail to demonstrate how great we are and how many people listen to us. But we'd like to talk about how we define our station. We define our radio station not by what we play, which is whatever happens to be on our playlist, but by what we don't play. Now let's take Elvis. Elvis, a fat, bitter, frustrated fraud who happened to die at the right time. We don't play any Elvis. No, sir. Why, he's just nothing but a truck driver. He's not half as talented or sophisticated as we DJs. In fact, what's this whole mystique about the musician? You know, I really have an axe to grind. My uncle, he works at the Ford plant. He has more skill in his fingers than any guitarist. I don't understand what this is all about. Well, we like to play Beatles. Why? Because that's all you've heard all your life. And we're not about to go off the beaten track for you. We don't care if you know about new music. If you wanted to hear new music, you'd go out and buy records. But as we know, records are obsolete. Oh, you're going to be hearing a lot about the Batman movie until Halloween. You know, it's just appropriate. Bats, Halloween, Dark Avenger. But come November 1st, forget it. We're not going to play any more Batman songs on this station because we're WMOB. And we like to rough up squealers. In fact, if you have our WMOB bumper sticker and a traffic policeman stops you, just point to it and he'll let you go without a ticket. In fact, he'll give you the money he collected from other tickets because we're WMOB, the enforcer station. Yeah, we really enjoy withdrawing our advertising from people who don't say we're great. Because that's what we're in business to do. And business is business. You know, we like to play the Beatles, and we like to play Bob O'Reilly. And that's one of the Who's latest hits. It's called Feedback is Feedback. Well, you know, the Who invented feedback. The Kinks claim they invented it, but who cares? The Kinks are for art fags, and here at WMOB, we don't have any truck with any of those people. We hate them all. In fact, we have nothing but contempt for these performers. I mean, if they happen to make it big, they sucked ass. And if they didn't, who knows about them? We sure don't. That's why we don't play them, because we don't care. Now, we have 20 Monkees hits coming up for you. We know how much you love the Monkees. We know that your parents put you in front of the television set and made you sit there between the hours of 3:30 and 6 p.m. We know that they wanted to keep you out of your hair. Well, if they really wanted to be hip, they would have had you listen to us here at WMOB. You won't hear the animals on this station. No, I'm afraid the animals are no longer fashionable. We got to get out of this place. What's that supposed to mean? Are they trying to say that American society can be criticized? Or are they trying to say British society can be criticized? Whatever way, we don't want to hear it. I will play lots of Supremes for you, but don't expect to hear the Dixie Cups. Who knows about the Dixie Cups anyway? Dixie Cups, isn't that what they put in our bathroom? As for Bob Dylan, he just can't sing. But we'll play him anyway, because here at WMOB, our job is to sell you stuff. Really. And also to make fun of morons who don't listen to WMOB. College stations. They're really arrogant. And unlike us, they don't make any money doing it, so they're worthless. And we hate them. And we hate you too. Because we're WMOB, the enforcer station. So just glue that dial to 104. And if you don't like it, send a bag of shit to Arbitron. They'll really dig that. So what if they boycott us? We don't care. We know where all the drive time listeners are. They're glued to 104. They don't have any choice. We hog the airways clear down to Wanscook, Rhode Island. Clear up to Lake Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire. Because we're WMOB, the enforcers. You're not going to hear any funkadelic on this station. That black stuff went out of style 10 years ago. Well, at least with white people. Who cares what black people listen to? They don't have any money. And money's what it's all about. Money makes the world go round. Don't you realize that yet? distract you from your own petty lives. That's why we're at WMOB, where you won't hear the pretty things. Who the hell are they? The pretty things? Oh, they're like the Rolling Stones, but better? Who wants to know it? They never sold any money. They never sold any products. They never sold any records. So we don't care. The soft boys? Huh. Who are they? Just a nut and 3 Brits. We don't care about nuts. They don't sell. Not unless they do something like kill movie stars. That's what we're all about. Killing the lives of young and aspiring performers.
Turning everything into a trivial gumbo. Huh. We have fun doing it.
Don't.
Well, it looks like the FCC is taking away my license. But we don't care. We can say shit, and they can't stop us. Because we're WMOB, the enforcers. And if my engineer were here, he'd probably strangle me. But since he isn't, I can just rattle on. Stevie Wonder, he hasn't had a hit in 8 years. Who cares about him anymore? Blondie, she's washed up. They had to call the police, Blondie. Because you can see her roots.
She has a new album out.
Yeah, and it's all remakes of stuff she did back in 1981. Well, maybe we will, Larry. That's all we're interested in. Remakes. Bob Dylan, what's his problem? He got throat cancer or something? Why can't he learn how to sing? At least put his voice through a PCM. We're sick of records. Compact discs are just so much easier to deal with. With records, you actually have to listen to this stuff. With compact discs, it's all right there with you. Rod Stewart, that story about him swallowing 50 tablespoons of semen is not true. He denies it. But we can't risk playing him. Oh, we got it. We got someone on the top back here. Help me out there on the top back. It's that little black penis shaped thing.
Yeah, like a microphone?
Yeah, like a microphone. WMOB. Penis, vagina, sex, but we're not trying to sell you anything. We're just trying to sell you ourselves. And if you happen to think we're cool, we can do anything we want. We can abuse our interns. We don't have to pay them any money. They're honored just to be in our presence. Because we're great. We got charisma. We got so much goddamn charisma, we can be as arrogant as we want to be. On WMOB. We got a live band here in the studio. Sort of helping us out here. Patty LaBelle, she's a has-been. Forget it. She hasn't had a hit in 12 years. That's what it's all about, hits. We like to break new acts. We're not giving them any exposure, unless it suits us. Here on WMOB. Dave Part 5, they're never going to get anywhere. Whoever heard of a band where the drummer sings? I mean, come on. Joan Jett, Genesis, U2, REM, all the stuff you've been hearing for the last 15 years, well, you're going to hear it for the next 15 years, and the next 15 years after that, because we don't care about anything new. New is threatening, and we don't want to threaten you unless you don't listen to WMOB. I'm your DJ, KC Star. That's what I are. Oh, we do devote half an hour of programming to local bands. It's the least we could do. I mean, a week has 168 hours. Well, that's a whopping 0.4%. Who says we don't care about young, struggling artists? Of course we do. Well, they're taking me away now. Who wants to be first? Who is totally discouraged? Raise their hand. Okay. Well, all right. Fun's fun, but I've been yelling into a microphone that doesn't work for the past 5 minutes. But, hey, I don't care. Well, you heard it from the boys at Pelvic Thrust. Looks like everybody's going to be yelling into the microphone. like, the star is sick, the star is sick. In this case, it's the sound man.
Well, get rid of the buzz anyway.
Buzz? Buzz clocks? They're bags. We have a microphone. We had one. None of the microphones work. Well, yeah, it's an all-star extravaganza. We got so many bands coming in here in the 55 minutes which remain. You're just not going to believe it. You probably don't believe what you're seeing right now. Portrait of a man who is going slowly insane. Oh, what do we got? We got Stingy Tipper and the Lost Weekends. And we got Land of the Giants with Billy Mooney. And Lickamaid. And we got the Airborne Aramaic Sect. Layla. Oh no, Layla's not here. Let's take this time to talk about all the performers who have graced our stage in 13 months that we've had this open mic. Yes, so many great performers. None of them are here now, except Pelvic Thrust. Pelvic Thrust was one of our very first. Cardi's been coming here. Oh, she was here about 10 months ago. And she's been coming pretty regularly. Cardi's the young lady singing When You Shake Doorway. And, yeah, Cardi. Not you, her. She's too embarrassed. She's too embarrassed to joke and say, that's me. But it is her. Wow. So who wants to be first? I know, I'm always first. Try. We ain't got no microphone.
You haven't plugged all your speakers now.
What?
Plug your speaker back in.
How was that? Anything? All right. No more music. Let's start the show.
Well, go right ahead.
All right. Well, I used to work in a hospital as an orderly. I spent about 7 or 8 years working in hospitals. And eventually I wrote about my experiences as an orderly in a book called Dream of Long Headdresses, Poems from 1,000 Hospitals. And basically the book is in 5 sections and starts out with personnel and has a section on central supply and a section about mental health called The Towers. I also worked on a terminal cancer ward, and there's a selection of poems called Cancer Rooms, and also worked on a geriatric unit. And there's a selection of poems called Old Friends.
So it's a book of poetry about your hospital experience.
That's right, yeah. And I sent the poems out and things to various magazines over the years, and they started to get published here and there. But it took about 13 years for the book actually to come out.
Did you write for the whole 13 years? Is this
No, I wrote the book. I finished the book when I was around 26 or so.
when you were 26?
Yeah, and I sent It was really the first group of poems that came together for me.
Were you still working in hospitals when you finished the book?
I had just been out of the hospital for about a year or so, a year or two. And actually what got me to write about it was I went to a poetry reading, and this Vietnam vet wrote a selection of poems about being a Nam, and they made a real impression on me, a real strong impression. I don't know, it was just somewhere along in the next couple of years I started thinking about places that, you know, had been intense experiences for me, and, you know, the hospital was one of them, so I just started writing about some of those experiences.
And when did you start working in hospitals?
I started when I was 16.
When you were 16, or as an orderly?
Yeah, yeah. My mother worked in a hospital, she got me the job. And,
Was this a local hospital? No, in Boston. This is Boston. So.
No.
No, you're from out of state.
Yeah, yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm from New York.
You're from upstate. New York?
Upstate New York, yeah.
Okay.
And so I worked at hospitals all around New York. You know, for just about 9 years or so. The first job I had was to collect bedpans in the hospital. They gave you a big cart, and you went all around the hospital and you picked up the bedpans, the emesis basins, soap basins, and then you came down and you washed them, and you put it in a big tub, and they gave you this disinfectant called staffine. You poured it in, and I asked them for, remember, this is like it happened yesterday to me, because I asked them, well, can I have some gloves to use? And they said, you don't need gloves, the disinfectant will kill everything. So for 8 hours I washed bedpans, and then that night I went home and I got up to take a leak, and my skin was all peeling off my arms, and then all my cuticles were slid, had slid forward, and I remember knocking on my mother's bedroom door, asking her for Band-Aids. But hospitals have these initiation things.
This was like your first day of work.
Yeah, it's like there was a whole bunch of things that I went through, and that's in the book under the section called Central Supply. There's you know, I have a short poem, you know, on that experience.
Wow. All right.
Want to hear it?
Well, if you want to, sure.
Okay, I'll just read this short poem. Find it here. It's called Staffine Fingernails. The first day of pan assignment, I washed 40 sets. The staffine felt warm on my hands like Ben Gay. It kept my mind off occasional pieces of shit and vomit that floated on the water like rubber ducks. That night when I washed my hands, all my fingernails fell into the sink. Nurse Mumford said, staffine is worse than acid, wear gloves. And, you know, so like, there's just a bunch of little poems like that that move around the hospital. And,
So this is a normal hospital.
yeah, this was general care.
General business hospital.
Yeah. It was like it was fairly large. You know, it had I don't know, it had to be 300, 400 bed type of place, and you know, we were busy all the time. But I think that's one thing that got to me in the beginning was just the backroom initiation type of things. Like, you know, it's like working in a restaurant. You know, there's a certain front to it, and people walk in and they see that, but
what happens?
and they feel comfortable about that. But there's a whole life that's going on, like at any job. But you know, I was working with the minimum wage, and with the people that were making the minimum wage. And so, you know, we were low on the totem pole. And basically we had all the you know, the dirty jobs that you could do in a hospital.
You're how old now?
40.
You're 40 now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it's a funny thing though, I was back in a hospital just over Christmas time. And I had mononucleosis, a thing you're not supposed to get when you're 40, but I had it. And the only room they had was in the geriatric floor. The hospital was crowded. And so I roomed with an 80-year-old guy. And, you know, it just, again, it brought back, you know, just the experiences that, you know, I had lived for a long time, because you know, in the geriatric unit, a lot of the old people, they sleep during the day and they stay awake all night.
Yeah.
And you know, they call out. They want to get out of there. You know, they want to escape. And there's this guy would wake up and he would talk all night, and then there was this other guy who would be saying about at every 10 or 15-second intervals, you know, if you just come down and show me where my clothes are, you know, I'll get out of here. And you could count to 10 or 15, and then he'd say it again, and you'd go on like that all night. And so, you know, I don't know how much the profession of being an orderly has changed over the years, but from my stay in the hospital, it came down to, like, there was one nurse that I really trusted and was dependent on. And then a lot of the other people I was suspicious of for some reason or other, I don't know. I had this feeling that, because I was very sick, and I said, they were taking my temperature at one point, and I swear.
Now, this is when you were just in the hospital?
Yeah.
Not when you were working?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I just swear that they, you know, I was telling this aide that, like, you know, you're really poking me with that thermometer. You know, I was trying to tell her that, and she seemed to do it harder. Now, I'm not saying that like that, you know, like hospital people are all like that or anything like that, but
Well, you worked in the hospital for 10 years.
You know.
When you were young, why did you stay working in the hospitals for so long?
Well, you know, I actually liked working with the patients, you know, especially like on the old geriatric units and stuff like that. I liked working with the people. I had, you know, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had a degree in philosophy, and
Well, that was later. That must have been, if you started when you were 16, that's got to be 8 years after that.
yeah, well, even after I got my
After I got...
degree, I was
So you
still
stayed working in hospitals because it paid your way through school?
Well, it helped me get through school. You know, helped me to work through my way through school, and I just got caught in it. You know, it's just like time flies. You know, that type of thing. I ended up doing a lot of different things.
Well, you started out washing bedpans. What did they run you to next?
Well, I went from bedpans to washing thermometers. That was the next thing you got to do. And then you went all the way up, you know, powdered gloves. And then you eventually got out of central supply, and you went to work in the emergency room, in the cast room. And sometimes you assisted in the operating room. You know, mainly like as a gopher type of person, you know, for the doctors and stuff. And then I started working on the floors, so they started me off on, I actually worked on like a terminal cancer unit. That was my next assignment. And then I moved on to the geriatric unit. And then I spent a couple years out in another hospital as a psychiatric attendant. and that at that time, they were very interested, and this was the early 70s, they were very interested in people that were coming in on drugs, on bad trips and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
having some sort of understanding of
Was
that.
it early 70s?
Yeah, it was early 70s.
So you were right in the middle of doing all those anyway.
Yeah. No.
No. No.
Not me. Never. You know, I just like I was surrounded though. You know, there was the ambiance of the whole thing was, you knew what was happening. You know, but you know, like I say that, you know, I worked on this as a psychiatric attendant, and one of the things I was trained for there was to assist at shock therapy time, which was that was a very intense experience.
Well, what else did they have for treatment at the time?
Well, they had
Was the hospital itself interested in psychedelics as a
not as a treatment.
not as a
They
treatment?
were like, they were, you know, it was, you know, the population of patients. It was a private hospital, you know, and it also had a general wing and everything like that. But as a private hospital, it had all kinds of people.
So-
But it was, at that time, they thought the young people that they hired would be able to work with the young people that were coming in if they were like having a bad trip or something like that. They assumed automatically that
That you knew what
there
to
would be
do.
some sort of communication that you would be able to establish with your peers. And I don't know if that was true or not, you know, but that's what they thought, I think. That's what they asked me when they hired me. They wanted to know if they didn't ask me if I took drugs, but they checked me out whether I had any understanding of a variety of substances.
Mhm.
And I remember a friend of mine who was a pretty active person, and in this conversation we had with this RN one night, who was claiming that, you know, you could always tell someone who was tripping, and turned out that he was, and, you know, working,
Yeah.
having no problem with it. But again, there was this whole idea, everybody, you know, immediately thought that you were going to, you know, jump off a building or fly off or something like that. And I'm not taking it lightly that some people really got screwed up and stuff like that, but during that time period at the school that I went to, there was an awful lot of people taking acid that weren't jumping off buildings and things.
I didn't know. I never knew anybody that jumped off a building from it.
Yeah.
Art Linkletter's daughter is the only one I can ever even think of.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And he was in the room, so who knows? You know?
Yeah, yeah. So like, you know, that's I don't know. So I mean, it just was one of those things.
So who would they at that point in history? That's your movie hadn't come out about shock therapy. What was the movie that came out?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's
One
Nest.
Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest hadn't come out yet. What was their criteria for
Depression. Usually.
Depression?
Depression was like that was one of them. You know, I mean, anybody that was pretty much not saying anything. It got to a point where they were not even talking any longer.
Mm-hmm.
Was one of the...
Was prime candidate.
Yeah, yeah.
Wasn't for hyper people.
No, not really. You know, I didn't see a lot of hyper people get it myself. I mean, most of the people that I assisted with were, you know, really extremely depressed.
Yeah.
Or they appeared to be to me because they didn't say much.
Well, as with the movie, which most people have seen, so it's, you know, Mr. Nicholson gets his shock therapy
Mm-hmm.
as punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Was that at that point a form of punishment? Also for hyper people?
I don't know. I don't think so. There were some people that didn't want it, that were very afraid of it, and they still got it. I mean, I was involved in a situation where this young person was really very, very against being treated by shock therapy. And he nevertheless, I mean, you had to prepare them before they went. Sometimes they took blood, sometimes they gave you a muscle relaxer. You had various things that had to be done. And
Well, what is it? What does have to be done?
well, as I remember it, is like the main thing is they give you some sort of like at that time they gave you some sort of pill to relax, to calm you down a little bit. If you happen to be agitated or getting excited, or that even if you weren't, just so that your muscles wouldn't. I guess the rationale was that you wouldn't strain yourself so much when the convulsion.
Pull muscles.
Yeah, when the convulsion went through.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they took blood, and I don't know why they did that. I mean, I wasn't really a medical person. I probably knew at the time. I've just forgotten.
Well,
but
you prepped people basically.
yeah, they would a nurse would come in and do that, and I remember this person saying, "Is the blood red enough for you today?" To a nurse, like in kind of a vampire voice, and he was told that was his fantasy and stuff. And he said, "Well, this is your fantasy," and it turned out that there were like orderlies holding them down and stuff like that. So it wasn't like the cuckoo nest, or he wasn't like Nicholson or anything like that, but he was certainly resistant to the idea of getting treated, and he got it anyway.
Did not have the right to say no at some point.
I think he was underage, at the time. I think he was maybe under 21. Again, like it was back in the early 70s, and
Well, that's what I'm looking for, is that
Yeah,
sense of what happened then.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to remember, but I think I think he must have been under 21. I don't think.
And what was the reaction when somebody came out of shock therapy? What was the what did they do? That was
Well, they
different?
were taken back to their room, either in a wheelchair. Sometimes they were wheeled back on their, on a movable bed and stuff. And they were fairly out of it for a while, in terms of unresponsive, and the big joke, but from the orderly standpoint, was that any conversation that you had previous to the shock treatment wouldn't be remembered after you started talking to them. So if you referred to anything that happened, just before their treatment, they wouldn't remember, and they wouldn't remember a lot of short-term memory things. And so you would go down 3 or 4 rooms, and you would get that same expression. And I also remember, like, and as things come back to me a little bit, I remember one time, because I had a hold over the abdominal region when the shock was sent through the body, to try to keep the body from. It really moved. I mean, these were real strong convulsions, and it made a big impression on me the first time I saw it, and the last time I saw it. I never really felt very good in that room, and because people would be shaking their head no, and people would be, they would put a rubber hot dog in their mouth and things like that.
Yeah.
And then the doctor would come in and he would step up, and it always reminded me of like a Lionel train transformer box that he had, and you could hear him set the timer on it and press the button, and then everybody would clear from the table except for me, and I would have to like release my hands from the bed so you wouldn't, I guess get shocked or something. I don't know.
I was going to ask you if you wore rubber shoes.
That and like I said, there was this one time that I remember saying, we haven't really been trained well enough to do this, because there was occurrences, not always around shock treatment, but there were occurrences where people would get violent and everything, and you wouldn't, you'd have to respond to it. And again, I remember this one time where these I was like sort of the guinea pig, and these other orderlies that were there for a long time were showing me, what to do to a person that was getting like that, especially if they were in the shock therapy room and stuff like that. And I just acted a little bit like I had a lot of energy, and threw this one orderly off me, and he landed on the floor and cracked his knee or something like that. And but again, I remember, like, people would, there were some patients that would get very intense about things, So, after that, I moved around again, and I eventually ended up like as a head orderly of this other hospital, and I was responsible for other orderlies, and the highest I ever got was to, and I didn't want to do it, but I did it, was to catheterization. At that time they would never, I don't think they let orderlies do that now, but I was able to go in and catheterize men, and which was extremely nerve-wracking. And I would imagine the people that I catheterized were absolutely terrified when I came into the room.
Really?
Yeah, because it's
got to be painful.
Yeah, it's painful, and and you're just, it's you know how sensitive it is and everything, and I didn't like that job, but I it was part of my assignment, and we had to take some tests and some training for that. And then eventually what happened is I was driving, I was working with this patient in this other hospital, and his name happened to be Augie, and he was telling me about this lake in upstate New York where there used to be all these ducks, hundreds and hundreds of ducks that would come to the lake and land on the lake. And it was such a beautiful sight to me. He was about 75 years old. And and then he talked about how the lake became developed and stuff like that, and eventually the ducks disappeared. And I would sit up at night listening to him. I was working the night shift at the time. And my job, he was in intensive care, and my job was to make sure that he didn't pull out the catheter and the IVs in his arms and stuff like that when he woke up. And this was near the end of my orderlyhood, and I wrote this poem that's called Augie. Augie, my shift consists of 8 hours of seeing that you don't pull out the tubes in your belly, or the IV in your arm, or the catheter in your penis. 2 days ago, doctors removed half of a 75-year-old stomach. The nurse advises me to watch you close. You're a mean old bastard on a medication that makes half of your brain more senile than the rest. I watch you closely. You raise your eyelids. How'd you like a shotgun blast between those eyes, boy? And I went home that night, and I had just been recently married, and the next night I was driving to work, and I got down near the end of this lake, and I looked out at it, and I just turned around and never went back. I never even turned in a resignation or anything. I just had ended, and then I was unemployed. So that's
So 10 years was what you could take. Did you feel burned out for any period in this 10 years?
Well, I felt like I wasn't going anywhere. I got there were periods of time when I did it part-time. There were periods of time when I did it full-time. I jumped back and forth, and I moved around New York, and for a while it seemed like it was the only job I could get. And so and I think once you have experience in a hospital, you can walk into any hospital and get a job.
Yeah.
But
Did you find this initiation routine every time you changed jobs?
no, I didn't, because you had, you know, I was able to sidestep all of that stuff because it just didn't, you know, I became hardened to a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the first time I was working in the emergency room, I was told to like go in and undress this person behind curtain number 1, and so I ran in there and started undressing the guy and everything. This guy wasn't moving much, and so I ran out and I said to the nurse, I said, "Hey, I think that guy's dead in there." And they all said, "Oh yeah, DOA." And it was something they didn't tell me before I went in, and that was actually the first encounter
Mm-hmm.
I had with a person that had died, and I, you know, as I worked in the hospital, I realized that you know, people like channel. You know, I met great, caring people that worked in the hospital at all levels, and even sometimes the most caring person channeled some of the unending situation off into like a real morbid humor. I mean a real dark black humor. And so like shocked in the beginning, I wasn't shocked, you know, all the way through, and not everybody participated in it. You know, I participated in it myself. I was in a room with a person that had just died, and with another orderly, and we could not get the eyelids to stay shut, and it was like a very weird situation, because it was like so you see on TV. Well, one eyelid would pop open, you know, just put the other one on. It would, and it struck us as very funny, and we were laughing very hard. But when we opened the door, the family of the person was just there, was just ready to come into the room. And so, you know, you got caught into those, in those situations every now and then. Had a patient from the morgue with rigor mortis that set in as I was wheeling it down to the funeral hearse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I had the belt on too loose, and it actually flipped right off the cart onto the floor. And I reacted in front of the director like, "Oh my God." And he just, "Don't worry.
Happens
They
all the time.
won't get hurt now. He can't get hurt, she can't get hurt."
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just like, you know, all that stuff seemed to come at me in the first period of time that I was working there. But after that, you know, it was just, it didn't happen much. I saw, you know, I think, you know, the examples of just things that are inexplicable to you, you know, stand out in your mind when you work in a hospital, and a lot of that goes down. For a long time, I looked at doctors as people that came in and wiggled the toes of the patients and prescribed treatments and things like that, but I didn't see a lot of bedside manner or like caring from many of them.
When you started?
All the way through, really.
All the way through.
You know, you know, I mean, the cry is that everybody's overworked, and you know, the nurses are overworked, the doctors are overworked. You know, everybody's, you know, but you're paying big bucks too at the same time when you're in a hospital, and you know, I just didn't see it, and I felt. Of course, this was my bias, probably from my position on the ladder, but you know, I saw a lot of the care, the hand-holding type of care and stuff, coming from the aides and orderlies.
Not from the nurses or the doctors.
You know, from some nurses and things, but like as you even went up scale of, you know, nurse from LPN. LPN would be closer than RN, you know, because they all had their duties, and it was real hectic, and you'll hear people say when they come out of a hospital they lucked out, you know, they had the best nurse in the world, they had the best group of nurses, you know, and that makes everything happen, because if you get into a hospital and you don't feel that, you know, it's the same way you feel in other places that you go, and you know, you're looking for good service and you don't get it. But when you're sick,
What are you gonna do?
yeah, and the service isn't there for you, then you get, you know.
Well, there's some hospitals to go to and some not to.
Yeah, yeah. So like it's hard to, you know, the book I wrote is just a book of experiences.
Yours.
Yeah, my experiences, you know, working with patients, working on different floors. It's not like, you know, it's a funny book in the sense because I wrote it and then I moved away from it, you know, and I'm into other things, but it's eventually a book that came out. And if it's a critique of anything, it in the long run, it may also be one of the way we do care for each other when we get sick, and the way it's been institutionalized. And I think that comes out, you know, a
That
little
the
bit.
institutional is the difficulty, not the concept of the institution.
Yeah, like, you know, it's what happens to institutions. It's what happens to like public schools. It's what happens to you know, all governmental
All
agencies.
government,
You
yeah.
know, it just the way it goes. And so as I moved away from that experience, you know, I can look back on it and I can say, you know, that's the case. And I'm still like, I'm really an advocate for, I was reading in the Globe the other day about like Canada having, it's a birthright to have health insurance. And the reason they're able to do it is that they cut out all the bureaucracy of checking people out, and it's just automatic. They don't pay a dime on seeing whether you qualify or not. If you're a Canadian citizen, you have
qualify,
health
yeah.
insurance. And that saves like incredible amount of money to eliminate catching people in the act. And I know a lot of people without insurance now, and you know, that again, that doesn't make a hospital like a very friendly place to go to if you don't have that.
But then England has that, and England's got great problems with its medical.
Yeah.
That, you know, yeah, we'll give you medical, but it's more institutionalized than.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a simplistic thing I'm thinking of, but I really think that,
Well, health insurance would be good for people.
you know, that, and to.
Now, you worked mostly in public institutions.
I worked in public and private, you know, so I worked in like general hospitals, city general hospitals and stuff.
Was the care different in the private hospital than the public hospital? This caring that you speak of?
Well, I think that,
Can I pay for it?
no, the private hospitals, I worked at like one Catholic hospital that was run by the Sisters of Charity, and, you know, they were always around, so that I think that might have added some.
The sisters were.
Yeah,
always
that might have added a little bit of comfort, you know, create a different comfort zone. But you know, like I said, day in and day out, I just saw, you see both sides, you know, you can't, it's like anything else, it's like, you know, things are happening, that's good, things are happening, it's not so good. You just, it's unending, it's just a continual thing. You'll get people, aides and orderlies in there that, for some reason really, care about what they're doing, and you'll get other ones that, you know, it's a beater for them to have the job and stuff. And, but I got into it because, like I said, just because my mother worked in a hospital.
At 16 years old, I worked in a hospital at 16 too.
Did you really?
Yeah, down in Quincy.
Well,
Basically the same stories.
well then I, yeah.
Yeah, no, I recognize it well.
Yeah.
I got out of it right away though.
Well, I got a lot of out of the experience. You know, I really.
Well, you put a lot into it. 10 years is a big chunk of life to put into it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
But it was the direct experience with people that are ill.
Would you when you come up, say, I see it from exactly those terms. You can get the job when you're 16. You can also get the job when you're 70.
Mm-hmm.
Would you go back and work in hospitals when you get older?
I don't know. I don't think so. I have.
No,
I have.
not out of. I'm asking from a caring point of view.
Well,
when you get there, so that there's nothing else, you're retired. You've done your 40 years on the job. You get your pension. Your government gives you your money. Now will you go back and volunteer to help take care of people? Is the question. You know, volunteer going back in and work as an orderly for minimum wage, basically.
well, I'd have to I'd like to say yes, but I just don't know at this point, really. You know, I'd like to. I'm working on some other things now, and that I've used the experience in the hospital to help me with, and I think again, it's socially oriented, job. So it's a possibility. I had a friend who just went back in at 40 into working in a nursing home, and he just couldn't do it, he said. You know, after the years he had spent, he couldn't get emotionally up for it, and a lot of the physical work that he was required to do wasn't quite as easy at 40 as it was, like, at 20, because a lot of lifting as an orderly. There's an awful, and there's people that sometimes they slip on you, and they pull on you, and things like that. But when you're young, you can shake that off. With a little bit of back injury and things like that, there was much more strain on the person.
Yeah.
So visiting people, doing something with people, having the time to, go in and play cards or euchre or checkers or chess or something, and if I had my health,
Well, would this
a
be?
possibility.
Is it as when you were dealing with the young drug takers in the early 70s? Would older people work better with old people?
I think that's, I don't know. I think I think it's certainly a possibility. Again, it depends on, to me it depends on your level of sensitivity. Where you are at the end of 60 or 70 years, after day-to-day living. Do you have it or what?
This is the top of the box here on KLSD. We're reporting to you from the stands of the Oakland Coliseum. And we interrupt our coverage of the San Francisco earthquake to bring you the third game of the World Series. I'm up in the balcony. The stairs are shaking. They're trembling. People are falling, lying on the ground. Sort of reminds me of a Grateful Dead concert I saw back in Madison Square Garden in 1979. We're going to bring you now to those reprobates, Pelvic Thrust, and they're going to accompany me as I address the third annual meeting of Wicca Anonymous. Well, you know, with a name like DiMenno, you'd figure I'd have to be a Catholic. And you know something? You'd be right. Yeah, I was a Catholic. You know, they taught me for the first 7 years, and after that, there was no helping me. Well, my Catholicism was starting to take control of my life in ways which I could not control. For instance, I used to manifest symptoms of simple excitement when I became intoxicated with God. I would walk around my bedroom shouting, "Jesus loves me, this I know, and the Bible tells me so." Well, before too long, I grew to intense excitement with the Lord. I became so furious, I began quoting the Bible to strangers. "Ask and you shall receive, judge not lest ye be judged. In the beginning, God made heaven and earth." And then I became depressed. Why can't those secular humanists and New York Jew lawyers accept the truth of the character? Oh, I feel lousy. Well, before too long, I exhibited the fourth sign of intoxication with God: stupidity. I used to walk up to strangers and shout in their ear, "Jesus loves you, this you know." And before too long, I began betraying symptoms of reeling, staggering logic. The world must be 6,000 years old because it says so in Genesis. Yeah, it wasn't too long before they could use God to bait a trap, and by God, I would stick my foot in it. Well, for instance, I would buy any product which was endorsed by Jesus. Manischewitz, you name it. I was just a sucker for the Lord. Well, before too long, my sickness grew, and I began to take 2-hour breaks at work and lead prayer meetings. Well, that led to chronic use. I would come to work with communion wine on my breath. My underarms would reek of frankincense. My crotch would reek of myrrh. And my fingers would be covered with gold rings. I was acting out. Well, before too long, I began displaying signs of physical damage. Stigmata. A cross mysteriously carved on my forehead while I was asleep. Well, that led quickly to mental damage. All I could think about was the Lord. I would chant his names: Jesus, Yahweh, Jehovah, God, Lord. That's all I could do. Somebody called me up from a radio station and says, "Give us the count the amount and you'll win $800. And I said, "Jesus loves me, this I know." Well, you were close, but sorry. Well, that led to the 10th stage of my intoxication with the Lord: death and rebirth. Pelvic Thrust will tell you about it. Pelvic Thrust knows. Well, now here's the serious part, so let's have a little soft music here, real soft and low. I joined Catholics Anonymous, and I went through the 12 steps. I admitted my powerlessness in the face of God. I acknowledged a power greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. And I pledged to turn my life over to Satan. I took a fearless, amoral inventory of all of my good deeds. I admitted my good deeds. I asked Satan to remove my soft-heartedness. I asked him, "Please, don't make me a softie. I don't want to be worm boy anymore. I want to be macho man. I want to have a goddamn pitchfork knocked down my chest." I made a list of all the people I helped, and I resolved to do the dirt. So I made a direct unbending, and I unraveled their pitiful, puny lives for them. Sent them hate mail, sabotaged their mailboxes.
called the police on me. I took a personal inventory of myself. I prayed to improve my contact with Satan. I prayed for an anti-spiritual awakening. And finally, I vowed to carry the message of Satan to other people. So I built up a repertoire of pro-satanic verses. I may not always love you. Satan only knows what I'd be without you. Satan is a concept by which I measure my pleasure, yeah, pleasure, yeah, pleasure. And I did Stairway to Heaven backwards. Sweet Satan. And finally, what's new, Lucifer? Whoa, Lucifer, Lucifer, I'm in love with you. And I started really reassessing all of the songs that I loved in my youth. Like that wonderful song by Kansas, Dust in the Wind. You know, I'd love to meet that guy. You know what I do? I come to him and say, all we are is dust in the wind, eh? How's that for dust in the wind, huh? How's that feel? This one goes out to San Francisco. Like a bridge over troubled waters. Yeah, well, and then I started seeing the California Raisins in my dreams, but they weren't the California Raisins. Their names were Hal, Luce, and Nate. The California Illusions. And I realized my whole life was nothing but one long illusion. I had to get away from the Satan stuff. So I said, I do not acknowledge the power of a hairy, cloven-hoofed, horned devil to order my affairs. So I got into Elvis. Elvis worship was easy. It was fun. It's so easy to love Elvis, but you know, it's easy to love him, but it's not easy to understand him because, you know, there's a good side and a bad side to Elvis. Boys, let's get real going for a change. So, with the help of Pelvic Thrust, I developed my good Elvis, bad Elvis act. shit-kicking. Oh, get the ukulele out, Clem. We're going to have us a little Nashville hoedown. Did you know the Nashville Network has stand-up comics?
like something which, if I had thought of it, I'd be like patting myself on the head and saying, good boy, good boy. But this is actually true. This guy gets up on stage, and you look in the audience, and it's like, well, I don't mean to heap scorn on people, but, you know, sort of beefy, arteriosclerotic, fake pearls, you know, underwear with the months of the year on them, and this guy was telling these like jokes, you know. It's like he was like sort of being a black man at a Klan rally, listening to this, because he was saying stuff like, "What about them Arabs, huh? Them Shiites? Well, I'll tell you something. If I was in charge of things, the Shiite would hit the fan. What's this boy George? Boy George? Do you really want to hurt me? I'll tell you something. If boy George lays down and talks to my automobile, I'll show him exactly whether I want to hurt him or not." And what's with this Michael Jackson? Michael Jackson, this 4'6" shrimp, he looks like a girl, and he comes out with an album, and you know what it's called? Bad. I like to take that glove of his and shove it down his throat. Yeah, the guy was like, it sort of reaffirmed my faith in the sort of goodness and basic decency of the American heartland. My friends in Pelvic Thrust, let's give them a hand for accompanying an able accompaniment. My name's Francis DiMenno. Thanks for not throwing shit at me. And I guess we're going to bring on the first act, but who might that be? You boys might be needed, so don't you go astray too far. Who's that young lady who wanted to do that song there? Is she still here? Oh, come on up. We're going to get nice and loose now. Yeah. Old dog Blue sitting there, a thumping his tail next to the fireplace. And we're just sitting around cracking nuts and reading from the scriptures. And this young lady here, foremost gospel singer, straight from Nashville, Tennessee. What's your name, honey? She's from Boston, actually, but I know her heart is in good old Nashville. Well, sweetie, tell me your name here. Carolyn Walker. And she's going to do a song which nobody here has rehearsed, so you gotta give her a big hand of applause just before she starts, so she knows. Well, now, you know, this open mic is sort of turning into like, I don't know, a little family, the Manson family. Let's go out and kill Sharon Tate. No, oh, shoot. Oh, well. Matt, Juanita, they were in the bathroom cleaning up. They didn't hear me call them the de facto featured act, but I guess they are, and I'd like them to come up just right now and wail. Last week we didn't have any sound, and well,
They wailed anyway.
they wailed. They filled in. By God, if you ever saw the movie Nashville, you know how important it is to have someone come up there. Hey, this is Mike. Mike Arsami. What's up, hand for him? Oh, man. Anyway, they're so talented that you're urged to stay. We also have a celebrity in the audience, Mr. Chad Crum. He'll be playing on November 18th with Ed's Regina Qualities and other famous individuals like Eddie Lawrence. And we might be able to coax them up here to do a song, provided that Matt and Chucky let him use their guitar. But until that time, you are urged to stay both for Chad and for Pelvic Thrust, who are going to get to do their new repertoire. Until that time, here they are. Matt, Juanita.
Hi, actually. One time we were on Singing Beach. Has anyone ever been to Singing Beach? Adventures, yes. And the beach actually sings. So if you feed it, you squish it around, the beach sings. And we had been up after a party. So this song was inspired by Singing Beach. About the medicine man who was, well, there's more of them, but they're gradually being taken.
There's only one left.
There's only one medicine man left in Brazil because they're chopping down all the trees, so they all have to go elsewhere. What? We're going to bring them to Boston, and then they're all going to.
He's going to be our featured artist.
They're all going to work at Brand Circus, and then it's going to be a real good thing.
Because they're looking for a nutritionist.
Here. So if anyone is looking for a job, pays $6 an hour. Give them a call. clarinet with a mic for us, so it won't be too loud.
in my head, dyes in my eyes, electrodes in my head, dyes in my eyes, electrodes in my head. Life is suffering and then I'm dead.
40 furry boxes make one fur coat. Millions of mice die in labs each day. Toxic chemicals down their throat. In the laboratory, they do this vivisection. In the classroom, they're made to do the dissection. Medical students get open cats and dogs. 10-year-olds are born on toads and frogs. Why does the monkeys have a nuclear explosive? Well, when the bomb drops will all be corrosive. Dyes in my eyes, electrodes in my head. Dyes in my eyes, electrodes in my head. Dyes in my eyes, electrodes in my head. Life is suffering and then I'm dead. You might think it's a ridiculous issue, but is it necessary to use the tissue of a rabbit's eyes while she wriggles in pain so we can test my mascara? Oh, you're so vain.
You probably think this song isn't about you. You're so what I'm here to say to you is if you want to say these animals, there's something you can do. Stop killing, let them live free.
Experiment on human beings, not on a monkey.
Dyes in my eyes, electrodes in my head. Dyes in my eyes, electrodes in my head. Dyes in my eyes, electrodes in my head. Life is suffering and then I'm dead.
Thank you.
Can we go back for one more?
What are we gonna do?
Say something else.
What's that?
Is it gonna stop?
Somebody had a Zen arcade or
Oh, yeah.
something, you know?
Everything's
Is it
dead.
gonna stop? No?
Hey!
Hey! Well, our friends are here, so we're gonna do the same set over.
We can do the same set for our friends then.
Hi, Jen. Hi.
Well, that's your having 5 more songs.
We're just done. We're doing good.
This younger generation, they just don't know what camping's all about.
Hi, guys.
That's Starling Park.
Did you unplug it?
Sky songs.
-3
Me,
plus
and I've replaced the rest of the band with clarinet. They don't ask to be paid. She doesn't ask to be paid as much.
That's it, though.
She's pretty good.
I don't know about that either.
Well.
Yep.
There's a combination like a love, 13 right, 13 left, 13. Now the whole thing's falling and I really not for the real thing. Stuck here inside this carnival ride. I used to be fearless, now I'm petrified. Now I'm petrified. There's a combination like I'm with you. I'm safe enough to crack it. And I'm a virtual handler of and balls and leather jacket. Some before you take a good look inside. Remember how easily I will break petrified. Because I'm Or do you want to do the chorus to our new song?
Yeah. This isn't finished yet. This is another sad one. Especially for you, Mom. Because you like the sad one.
I like overplay because I thought that was the last song after the tune.
This isn't finished. All we have is the chorus, one verse, and the chorus again.
We remember the verse. Okay, we've got this afternoon. We had a whole planned show that we missed. We're usually not this competition.
Work in progress.
Different outfit every time he comes on. Oh, I saw something in Mad Magazine. It was like Worcestershire sauce, right? And it was like walk him around was the motto. And how do they expect anybody to understand that if under the age of 25? I mean, you know what that's about, right? Cher made her big, splash in the media in the late 70s by walking around one of the people from the Average White Band after he had, like, mistakenly snorted heroin from a dish that he thought had cocaine in it. And although there were some people who were saying, well, she had no business being at a party like that in the first place, most people said, hey, Cher's really hip because she saved this guy's life. Unfortunately, the other fellow, Robbie, whatever his name was, he died. But anyway, I was going to say, these guys need money, and any of you folks who want to chunk some money in that their hat right there for the folks, and I'm sure they'd appreciate it. Oh, we all need money, I know. Money's not what it's all about, believe it or not. You know, I see these people in the media. And they're always held up as examples of the all-American boy. The all-American boy. Well, I don't want to be the all-American boy. I have just enough Southerner in me. I want to be the all-American man. And you know something? I mean, this whole thing about the all-American boy. I mean, they try to tell you that what the all-American boy is somebody who's like reverent and patriotic and, kind to old people and all this sort of standard. Yeah, rich, drives a fancy car. All the girls' tongues droop to the ground every time they see it. And you know, that's not what America's about. America is about speaking your mind. You know, and none of these all-American boys have a mind to speak out of. So, you know, I just want to get this off my chest, such as it is. My name is Francis DiMenno. Drunk, and I forgot what I was going to say.
Show your nipples.
Nipples.
All right, my nipples. My name's Francis DiMenno. Alcoholic, drug addict, easy guy to shop for around Christmas time. But you know, I'm going through acute withdrawal. Except my girlfriend doesn't think it's very cute. Especially when I rummage for coffee-soaked cigarette butts at 2 in the morning. No, it's not very cute at all. I'm an optimist, actually. No, really, everything could be a whole hell of a lot worse. Think about it. What if Noah, you know Noah, the ark? What if Noah had gotten drunk and said, hey, fuck it! Throw the animals overboard and bring the fish up here.
The animals are
They ate the animals.
No, wait a minute, let me explain this. If they threw the animals overboard, they would drown, and if they put the fish up on board, they would die, and there wouldn't be any animals or fish to speak of. Well, I'm also a pessimist because what if Eve had given an apple to Adam, and what if Adam had said, I don't like apples, give me an orange. Well, they haven't been invented yet. You know. So I don't know. You know, some of you might recognize me because I invented a car that runs on blood sugar. Of course, you might not recognize me because I lost 300 pounds on the drive from California. I have a confession to make. You know all those guys that were going around spraying swastikas on the synagogue in Brookline? That was me. No, that was me. You see, I had just seen the Mark of Zorro, but I'm dyslexic and I kind of screwed it up a little bit. I don't know. I thought it was 4.
Shirt when you did it?
I should have been. I was wearing, you know, I thought it was 4 sevens. Good luck, you know.
You look like Jesus.
I look like Jesus. Oh no! Don't give me
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Don't, the whole idea of Jesus Christ Superstar, isn't that a contradiction in terms? Here's a man that says, the last shall be first and the first shall be last, and then these 2 fucking Brits decide to make him into a superstar. It's just, the whole concept is inimical to like being Jesus, and it's like really disgusting, but well, I'll tell an interesting story. I don't know how interesting it'll be, but my mother was a big fan of the movies, and she took me out to see a stage production of Jesus Christ Superstar, and outside of the Nixon Theater in Pittsburgh, there are all these people handing out pamphlets which said, you know, this stage production is sacrilegious. Don't go inside to see it. Don't go inside to see it. And being a Catholic, I sort of felt as though I was crossing spiritual picket line, you know. You can get into that, you know. I mean, if you had any sympathy whatsoever with Muslims, which I guess very few people in this country do, then you'd probably get pretty upset with all this Iran baiting that's been going on. I mean, sure, there are enemies, but that's only because they've been designated our enemies. Just like the Germans were designated enemies during World War I and World War II. I mean, face it, the Iranians are just screwed up. I mean, and so, you know, they hate us. We didn't do anything to them except prop up a dictator which ran their country for 17 years. Anyway, that's political. Who wants to get into that? I was reading in the National Enquirer. There's this doctor who always happens to be there. Bye, folks. See you later. Going to the bathroom? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Get something to eat. Don't let your blood sugar fall too low or you might assassinate a homosexual city councilman in San Francisco. Hey, wait a minute. They're putting money in your hat. Oh, yeah, get that money. Get that filthy lucre out of here. That's your dinner money. Yeah, buy a beer. Buy a beer. Thank you. Okay, November 1st, please come back. November 8th, please come back. Bye, Juanita. Okay, so this girl was at Bush's inauguration. No, she was at a speech that Bush was giving. Bush. I'm getting it mixed up. She was at a speech that George Bush was giving before he was elected president. And according to the story, she didn't want to cough and so the mucus built up in her throat, and she started choking to death. And this ESP doctor, who happens to always be there when somebody is about to die, was there, and he saved her life. And well, I'm glad I wasn't him, because that sounds like a pretty messy chore. But Bush was so impressed that he invited them both to his inauguration, which makes sense because this girl's like mucus, gurgles, and coughing was probably more insightful than anything Bush had to say at his inauguration. I love Central Square. I do. We're getting this urban renewal thing going here. And it's really great that people consider us to be a slum. We're really thrilled, you know. We're thrilled. Oh, don't cough, please. Just let it build up in your throat, and I'll give you mouth to mouth. How do you do, Karen? Oh, no, you won't. No, we'll let one of the boys in the band do that. They came equipped for that. You just like suck it through a saxophone or something, I don't know. Be avant-garde jazz. No, don't throw shit at me, please. Yeah, well, you know, my apartment came furnished, which was great because I would not want to have to go out and buy cockroaches. You know, they're taking over. They're taking over. Like, you know, they don't refer to the garbage in my kitchen as garbage. They call it designer filth. You know, and they have a little sign tacked up over my spare room. Welcome to Urban Court. Bed bugs, please use the side entrance. But roaches aren't all bad. I saw a nice cockroach. He was visiting a sick silverfish friend. He was bringing him a paper bag with a grease spot on it. Okay. You ever see that guy in a cream of wheat box? Racial integration hasn't gone very far when we have symbols like this staring at us from our kitchen cabinet. You know, when I was in 4th grade, I was really bigoted. I was like a conservative, and, you know, what happened? I don't know, I went to a boarding school and some kid slipped me an underground comic book. From then on, I was in the thralls of Satan. But this is a true story. It's like, yeah, so that's what happened. So that's how you got that way. I got corrupted by all these crappies, but more about that later. Well, so, you know, some friend was visiting my house, and he looked into my cupboard, and he saw this cream of wheat box, and says, ooh, you have a nigger in your cabinet. Well, I think we ought to have equal access. I think we ought to have a white guy in a top hat advertising cream of caviar.
You got the guy in the Quaker Oats box who's white.
Yeah, that's Barbara Bush's illegitimate son. You know, this whole thing about American culture and how it's pervaded over television, it's like the infantilization of American culture. You know, everything is turning into Babyland.